Welcome to Cohn and Krueger, Larry Krueger, Grant Cohn. Breaking news. I'm not laughing. It's not funny. I know Niner fans are like having a panic attack or just having a bad day because Deebo Samuel has officially requested a trade, and we're going to talk about who's at fault, how they got here, what they can do. But at first, I want to give Larry credit because last week on this show, Larry, without batting an eye, was like, "Oh, he's going to get traded," and a lot of people were like, how can you say that? You're being dramatic. I mean, a lot of beat writers weren't even covering the story. And now, I mean, Larry was right. So I just want to point that out. So my first question to you is, someone who saw this coming, would you consider this a crisis or a lucky breaky? I'm going to call that a lucky break and edit that. A lucky break. What do you think?
I know it's an emotional thing for Niner fans, but this is a lucky break. It's a lucky break because this was going to go down a road if the 49ers paid him like an elite wide receiver. His value is with the ball in his hands. His value is as a runner. Now, whether that's as a running back or a receiver who you throw it short to, his value is as a running back or as a runner with the ball. So, either you're going to sign the guy to big dollars and then be afraid to use him in what he's best at, or you're going to get value for him at his highest peak. And right now, it looks like they're going to be forced to do the latter. And I think that's a lucky break because I think they would pay him that money and then they would either have a broken down, expensive wide receiver, or they're going to not pay him that money, and then they're going to have a wide receiver maybe didn't train a whole lot in the offseason who has recurring soft tissue injuries, and you're still paying him a lot. Maybe not $70 million guaranteed, but $50 million guaranteed. So I think he's doing them a favor by telling the team, I'm not happy, and I don't want to be here. And there's teams around the league because of the year he had that will pay a pretty decent price, I would think, to trade for him. So I think they're lucky.
It's an interesting way to look at it. If the Niners were to trade Deebo for for AJ Brown, for example, and just swap disgruntled wide receivers and pay him instead, I'd be okay with that. But I have a feeling they're going to trade him for draft picks, and I think it's going to be really, really hard to replace Deebo Samuel. And I think they're going to ultimately regret this. Now, the question is why did he have to play running back, and is that really where his value lies? I think you could argue that he's a hell of a wide receiver. I think he had 1,000 yards in the first 8 games. He was really playing well. The problem is the 49ers are a run-first team. They're not built to throw. Their quarterback's not good. Their pass protection isn't good. They're built to run the ball. And Raheem Mostert was out. Elijah Mitchell is a little – Trey Sermon was not effective. At least he wasn't trusted. I think the scheme, the offense, the quarterback, they needed Deebo to do that. I think it was a sacrifice that he made to the team. I don't think it's necessarily how you have to use him or the only way to use him. I think it was a sacrifice he made, and I think he thought that, wow, I'm doing this for the team. I'm showing my versatility. I'm selfless. I want the ball. They're going to reward me. And it didn't happen. I mean, really, I saw this coming. Parag used it against him. Oh, you're actually a running back. Your value is as a running back, and so we can only give you, I'd be surprised if they offered him $20 million, probably less. And that, I mean, probably from his agent's perspective, from his perspective, was a huge slap in the face considering what the market is and what he did last year. So I would consider it a crisis considering how long it took the Niners to go from Terrell Owens to Deebo Samuel. Maybe they can figure out another replacement. Maybe they can find another all-pro wide receiver. They'd have to.
I know. It is interesting because it's like the Niners are run by, I think Parag, you can love him, hate him, whatever. I think he's pretty bright. Did he not see this coming? I mean, did he really not see this coming? You're going to use your star receiver as a running back and then subject him to all those hits, and then you're not going to take care of him on the back end. I think Deebo said, hey, you know what? I'm going to do this because I'm all about the W. I'm all about the win. I'm a competitor, and I'm going to show you that I'm all about it by doing whatever you need me to do to maximize my potential. But you, in turn, have to reward me on the back end. Right. And the Niners obviously didn't get the memo, or at least didn't make that decision internally. They were trying to have their cake and eat it too. We'll just use this guy as a running back, but when it comes time to pay him, we're not paying him like a receiver. We're not going to reward him for, going the extra yard. We're going to try to save a buck and do what's best for us and pay him like a running back. And they created this situation, and it's crazy to think they couldn't see this coming.
I know. They just don't react well. And let's finish with Parag real quick. I bet he thought in February when he laid out the blueprint, his spreadsheet for the offseason, what he was going to do, I bet he thought he was going to take care of Deebo Samuel. I bet he had every intention of doing so. But the wide receiver market shifted dramatically. No one saw it coming. Trent Baalke gave Christian Kirk $18 million. That changed everything.
Yep. Yes.
So that became a position where you can't offer Deebo $18 million. Just a slap in the face. You're just calling him Christian Kirk. And maybe the Niners did that. It's possible that Deebo, as emotional and competitive as he is, if he got a Christian Kirk offer from the Niners, that could be it. I mean, like, really, we're negotiating from there? I don't know that, but it seems to me that that's kind of Parag's style. He sets a budget. He sticks to it. He doesn't deviate. And maybe that's a good thing. But in this case, you kind of had to react to the market. The Raiders did. They got Devontae Adams. I mean, say they did the right thing or not, but certain teams have reacted. The Dolphins, the Niners are acting like, oh, we can't even acknowledge this market, and it's costing them.
I wonder how much dialogue there was between Kyle and John and Parag when they were deciding to use Deebo as a running back.
Yeah.
Parag had to come in and say, Kyle, this is going to wind up complicating the negotiation. Kyle, this is going to wind up, he's going to want to get paid as a wide receiver. We're using him as a running back. Either that can't continue because it won't last, because his body won't last, or we're going to have to pay a guy that we're going to use in short yardage $70 million guaranteed, and he easily could get hurt. So I don't know if they – and then entered Trent Baalke and his horrendous offer to Christian Kirk, and that changed the market. Yeah. But, I mean, they had to know that the receiver market was going to be more costlier than the running back market, and that they wanted to pay more along the lines of a hybrid running back wide receiver type price. I mean, then when you factor in the percentage of the offense that this guy accounts for, I mean, they had to know that it was going to cost them a ton of money, and here we are. And it sounds like they want to hold tight to their cap plan, and it sounds like they've now insulted this player, and now he wants out.
I'm guessing Parag lowballed him. I'm guessing Kyle had every intention of giving Deebo what he wanted at the 11th hour if it came to it. I'm guessing everyone in the organization is surprised at how Deebo Samuel reacted. Like, dude, it's not even August. Like, wait. Like, we'll give you the money. We're just going to sweat it out for a while. And Deebo's like, nope, I'm offended. This is disrespectful. I don't think Kyle Shanahan expected it. I don't think Parag expected it. I think Kyle was going to let Parag do his job. And then he was going to overrule him like he did with Trent Williams last year or 2 years ago. What was it last year? Last year, if it was necessary. But Deebo just blew it up. Said, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do these negotiations. It seems to me if the Niners want an all-pro wide receiver, they're going to have to actually get with the times eventually. Maybe it's not Deebo who they want, but beggars can't be choosers. I mean, who was the last all-pro wide receiver they had? Freaking
great question. Yeah. I mean, Grant, I think everybody in this organization has their own personal scoreboard, and they don't want to lose their own personal scoreboard. Kyle's is a regular season scoreboard. Yep. John's whole scoreboard is tied to Jimmy in this trade, and Parag's scoreboard is tied to the dollars that he gets on negotiations. And these guys never talked it out. Once you played Deebo as a running back, fellas, you had to break him off. Otherwise, he's going to want to.
He did you a freaking favor, and to be like, actually, your value is more as a running back. Wow, I think he was expecting you to say, "Thank you, Deebo. Thank you so much for carrying us last season. We're gonna return the favor." That's not how the Niners do business. And Deebo, I try to tell you, Deebo. Larry and I have seen this play out so many times. Ask DeForest Buckner. Ask Deebo. Deebo and Deebo. If your name rhymes with Deebo,
that's it. You're gone.
You're gone.
It's a betrayal. It's a betrayal. He views it as a betrayal.
And you know what? I do too. It's a business, and maybe he shouldn't look at it that way. But wow, and the Niners are trying to make it look like, well, he doesn't want to play running back anymore. I don't know, man. He was the guy in the playoffs who turned to Kyle and said, "Give me the ball, as a running back." So to me, it's like I don't want to be paid as a running back, especially if you're going to like use it against me. Then forget it. I'm not playing running back anymore.
Right.
Anyway,
subject your body to more hits, and for it, we'll take money off your plate.
Win-win. Thanks, guys.
But everybody's personal scoreboard is being prioritized, and I really believe that.
Kajon 25 says Ayuk replaces Deebo. Use the same, almost exact same rookie numbers. Just get a better running back. No need to try to replace him. Oh boy. Oh
You
boy.
need both.
You need both.
He's a running back and a wide receiver. Guess what? If you don't have him, guess what you need? A running back and a wide receiver.
Thank you. That's the thing. If they trade Deebo, they're going to probably need either multiple players or multiple picks because he's 30% of your offense. He's two different positions. He's two different players, and he's elite at both. He's. You could argue, is he better at wide receiver or running back? I mean, he's literally elite at both. He was all pro at wide receiver last year, and yards per carry. How many running backs were above him? Zero, none.
He's your best running back and your best wide receiver.
Wow. You better get something good for him. John Master says, Deebo don't mind being used as running back. He asked for the ball in the game. He ran a TD, and Niners can pay me $150K. I'm much better than Jimmy, LOL. And P.S. Kittle is not that famous, LOL. Grant voice. I guess. If
John's
Deebo
up in his feelings.
Who's the face of the team? Kittle?
Parag. Parag's the new face.
I agree. I love that. Double B Studio says a couple days ago, I saw Deebo saw the playbook and said, I'm out unless Parag and Jed open up the Gucci Wallace. LOLs, who's twisting whose arm? The playbook. You think the playbook has changed that much and it doesn't feature Deebo anymore? And that's why he wants out? Wow. I don't see it. Cut Jimmy Garoppolo, trade Bosa, sign Deebo, get Buckner back? Yeah, in a parallel universe. Thank you, Double B Studio. Should have signed Cordero Patterson. That's random. But I do love Cordero Patterson very much.
If you knew this was coming, that was absolutely seriously. If they knew that this was coming, that was the guy to go get, right?
Well, I'm telling. Hey, it stuck with me when we interviewed Ray Ray McLeod. I asked him, "Hey, Ray, we know you're going to be playing a lot of special teams, but have they told you sort of how you figure into plans on offense?" And he's like, "Have you seen Deebo Samuel? I can do that." I mean, something to that effect of like, "Oh, so you're the new wide back on the team." And I was like, well, he's really confident, but maybe they told him like, there's a possibility you might be doing a lot of what he did. Not going to tell you why, but wow, maybe that's the plan for Ray Ray because he's about 7 or 8 years younger than Cordell Patterson. He's 25.
He's young and he's versatile. Yeah. I'll tell you what made me nervous, Grant, is when I saw the list of the guaranteed money that Parag has issued since he's been an executive with the Niners. That was what opened my eyes. I was like, wait a second. He's never given out $50 million to even their quarterbacks, but now they're going to give a running back, a wide receiver that they're using like a hammerhead fullback.
True.
Give that guy $70 million.
Never going to happen.
Nope.
It's never going to happen. Deebo didn't see it coming, but Deebo doesn't know the Niners like we know the Niners. Sorry, Deebo. But you know now. You definitely know now. Shiv North says requesting a trade in April. Yeah, dude, you need to relax. I mean, look. He's a supreme competitor. This type of emotion is kind of what fuels him to be great, I guess. I mean, would Kobe be different? Would Michael Jordan be different? Like, I'm just saying, it kind of comes with territory if you have that type of athletic arrogance. I don't know.
I can't stand people who tell me to relax, by the way.
Relax, pal!
It's a personal pet peeve. I'm pretty damn relaxed, actually, right now. I'm pretty relaxed. Thanks, though.
We'll keep saying it. If Trey is a bust, best look for Lynch and company to lowball Deebo, piss him off so they can justify trading him. Now they have an excuse for why Trey will suck this year. I don't see it that way.
Yeah, that's hyper negative.
But I do kind of see if they trade Deebo, I think their Super Bowl window is officially over at that point. Now you're rebuilding.
Seriously, you tied their Super Bowl window to Deebo, and I understood because he is that valuable. But wow,
if he goes, forget it. I mean, this team could win 6 games.
You bet. All I got to say is you better hit in the draft. Oh. You trade him for picks. That's fine. You better hit on those picks.
Yeah, all of them. Irfan Mirza says, did you see the vid of Deebo saying that the Niners never offered him more than $20 million? I did see the video. I watched it many times. It's very confusing what's happening. He's on Instagram Live with his mom. He's not in the video. His mom's in the video. I think they're on the phone with A.J. Brown, and it's unclear whether they're talking about A.J. Brown or Deebo. They have the same exact agent. They pretty much worth the same amount of money. It's confusing. But I would believe that the Niners never – I mean, the negotiation didn't get very far. Kyle probably would have stepped in and said, let's give him what he wants like he did with Trent Williams. But if the initial offer was below 20, maybe Deebo was like, I'm never talking to you again. Don't ever call me again, Parag.
By the way, you just mentioned something that jogged a thought, Grant.
What?
The Niners better get on this like immediately.
Yes.
Why? Because there's only so many teams in an off season that have a bounty to throw at a wide receiver. Yeah. And if Titans can't sign A.J. Brown, you don't want to get jimmied twice, right? Where suddenly you don't have a place to trade your guy because everybody else jumped you in line. They better be decisive on this if they want picks.
All right. Before we get some more questions, let's go to the next topic. Should the 49ers give Deebo Samuel what he wants and trade him? I mean, do you think because it seems like right now the reports from Josina Anderson is that the Niners are asking for so much, it almost seems like they don't intend to trade him, and they're going to use the leverage they have. He's under contract for another year. They can franchise tag him. Do you think they should play hardball here and sort of keep him against his will? They're within their rights to do so.
No, do not play hardball with this guy. Why? Because ultimately you're going to lose in different ways. You're either going to piss him off and send a bad vibe through the rest of your locker room. Everybody knows that he took one for the team, and now you're leaving him high and dry and not paying him market rate. So the last thing you want is to franchise him against his will and have a player who's a joyous player now does not want to be used how he's best utilized with the ball in his hands. And every time you hand him the ball, he's going to look at you cross-eyed, and you got people whispering in the locker room about discontent and this and that. And, the management won't be there to back you. It's a circus that can just tumble out of control. So no, be decisive, find out what he actually wants, figure out if you want to pay it. If you don't, get him on the trade market and get the best deal you can. And it'll all come to a head, my guess, by Monday or Tuesday of next week.
I mean, I'm guessing the Niners could make this right if Kyle called him right now and was like, look, man, we're going to give you $25 million a year. We got you. If they would do that, I think this would probably go away, but they're not going to do that. And I think if the Niners think they can sort of keep Deebo Samuel against his will and he'll have to play to get that money, I don't think they'll ever get the 2021 version of Deebo Samuel ever again. That was locked in. He was playing through a lot of injuries. He was willing to do whatever they asked, running back, whatever. He's not going to do that ever again. He'll be a much worse player. And also, if they held on to him, it'll be like holding on to Jimmy. He's worth a lot now. The longer this goes on, the longer it drags on, his value goes down. The perception of him as a teammate goes down. If he doesn't play, if he misses time, all of it. I mean, your trade value goes nowhere. So I think if you're going to trade him, you got to do it now, right now.
And the Jets are sitting there, and Joe Douglas is in year 3. And there's a ton of pressure on him. He's stated publicly, Grant, like 4 times this offseason that he's got to consider every possible trade. Mm-hmm. They get the longest playoff drought in the entire league. This is their go time. They got 4 picks in the top 38. You're never going to be staring at a better trade partner than them. Make the deal and get down the road and bite the bullet and take the hit. The fans are going to blame you and they're going to be pissed, but so be it. I mean, it's better to pop that pimple and move on than to sit there and live with it forever as what you're going to take your best offensive player. And now you're not going to feel comfortable handing him the ball because he doesn't want to do it anymore because you wouldn't reward him come contract time. I mean, it has a million different ways it could go south.
And does the new quarterback need the star wide receiver to be disgruntled and not want to be there? I mean, is that what anyone needs?
Exactly.
No, absolutely not. So should the Niners give Deebo Samuel what he wants to trade him? Absolutely not. Absolutely, yes. Yes, they absolutely should.
Trade him, but don't give him what he wants.
No,
and definitely don't sit there and try to power play him and say, you know what, here, flip the bird to you. We've got you under contract for $4 million. You know what that guarantees? That you're gonna have a $4 million player whose heart's not into it and who's missing games because of soft tissue injuries again.
Yeah, absolutely. He's gonna have a bigger circus than you would have normally had just with Jimmy Garoppolo around. I mean, what an awful offseason so far. But
hasn't been good.
Hasn't been good. Ron says Parag is dragging this team down. Fire Parag and hire Larry. It's crazy to me that Larry's on NFL payroll.
Thank you.
Maybe after this show today. Murphy says Deebo has made $3 million after taxes and agents, $1.5 million on houses, $50K on watches, cars, jewelry, plus family entourage is probably close to broke right now. Okay. I still don't think that you're going to get him to sort of play in spite of the 49ers on the 49ers. Now, he could do this. He could hurt his own career. I think he's already doing that. But yeah, I don't think the Niners are going to get Deebo Samuel to do what he did last year against his will. It's not going to happen. Mark says, you think Deebo is mad at the way he wasn't using the NFC Championship game in the second half?
Ooh, that's interesting. That is interesting.
Probably. He was crying.
I'll say this. I'm mad about it.
Yeah, I'm mad about it.
I'm still mad about it. I'm still mad about the second half of the Super Bowl where he was the dominant player at halftime and touched it twice in the second half.
That's right. Ellis Morales says, I will always love Deebo for how fun he made it to be a 49ers fan the last couple of years. But with all due respect to the man, it's Viking funeral time. Light the pyre on fire and push it out to sea, get picks and get out. I think Larry and I agree on that. I mean, it's a shame that it got to this point. Larry seems to think it might be a blessing in disguise if you think Deebo Samuel's career won't have much longevity, and I have no idea. We'll see. If his career goes George Kittle's career has the same trajectory, then Larry's absolutely right on that. I think this is a shame. I think Deebo Samuel's going to have a really good career.
How many years, Grant? How many years? If I said to you, let's just say there was no discontent. Let's just say he's totally happy. How many years could he perform like he performed this last year? 1, 2, 3? How many more years could he do what he did this year?
Tops
3, 4. Okay.
I mean, theoretically, he could, if everything goes well and he doesn't play running back a lot, and he's just a wide receiver until he's about 29. It seems to me that in this age, when wide receivers hit 30, it's about the end.
Yeah.
It's about the
I would say 4 is optimistic. But
optimistic. Yeah, with the way he's been going, it could be none. It could be none at this point. Dr. Robert Anthony Jr. says, wonder what Kittle and Lance feel about this. Yeah, I'd love to know.
Players always side with players, so you can just bank on that.
Yeah, Murphy says, my feeling this whole time has been that Deebo hates California. He's a country boy. This isn't really about money. He wants to live somewhere else. He's trying to get himself traded. Send him to New York. Because he's a country boy? That doesn't make sense, Murphy.
No.
I think it's about money, personally. Usually
he took one for the team, and he wanted the team to have his back. And Parag's personal scoreboard is what motivates Parag, and Parag's handling the negotiation. And that's the story.
That's the story. And I think Deebo probably had no idea who Parag was. There wasn't a serious negotiation when he got his rookie contract. You're slotted.
Right.
This was you got to know
it's a boilerplate.
Get to know Parag. All he heard was the coaches saying, "You're the greatest. We love you. Thank you, Deebo. We love you, Deebo." Okay, well, they're not going to sign your contract. Oh well. Salvador Lozano says, "I love Deebo, but he's becoming a toxic type of player with the Instagram and his brother's tweets. It's getting more clear that he is the issue in these negotiations. Trade him, team first. Team first."
I don't think he's toxic. I just don't think an NFL player has a lot of avenues to communicate their discontent. I'm fine with everything he's done, from his brother's tweets to his scrubbing of his social media. You know what? That there's not a lot of moves in the I'm unhappy playbook for an NFL player. Give him a break. He's expressing how he feels.
Let's theoretically, hypothetically, let's say the Niners offered $18 million a year for Deebo, and he goes back to his agent and says it's ridiculous. And agent wouldn't be there, and the agent says, "I know 3 teams right now that would pay you $24 million a year. What are we going to do, Deebo? We got to get you out of San Francisco right now. They're ready to go. The Jets are ready to go. Now they'll have to work out trade compensation, but as far as financial compensation for you, I can get you way more in states where there's way less taxes. What do you say? Great. All right, let's get you out of San Francisco. Well, what are we going to do? Okay, start with Instagram, and if that doesn't work, we'll do this. Seems like it. I'm saying.
I mean, to me, if I'm the 49ers, how much convincing do you need? If the guy doesn't want to be there and he's made many indications that he doesn't want to be there, why you're not going to hold him against his will? And he's got value. It'd be one thing if you couldn't trade him, but they can trade him and they can get a lot for him. So they probably will.
Deebo and his agent must think they can get what they want elsewhere, and I bet they can. The Ramelia Sports Report says, so glad our front office isn't run like the Niners. Yeah, I don't have a life-size picture of the Rams drafting a player as good as Deebo and then letting this happen for whatever reason, letting the relationship deteriorate. I just don't see it happening with them. But their owner is worth 2.5 times what the Yorks are worth.
And maybe they're a little bit more tied together. To me, the 49ers look like 3 separate entities, Kyle, John, and Parag. They don't look like they're operating in concert.
I agree. And what's crazy about Parag, I'm going to talk about him more later, is you look in the media guide, it's online. He is in charge of the chief contract negotiator, A. 2, he's the architect for the salary cap. So that's how they're going to spend money now and in the future. And he oversees football analytics. So he's deciding who's important, what skill sets, what positions. Very scary. Very, very powerful person.
Very powerful person.
He's been there for about 22 years. Murphy says, unless Lynch gets incredible value higher than Tyreek, where he clearly comes across as winning a trade, force Deebo to stay this year and franchise him next year, he can't afford to not play. Yeah, but he can play poorly and he can tank his own value. And then he's Jimmy Garoppolo, is it the guy you should have traded last year? I'm just saying.
I mean, think about it this way, too. What if they come to an agreement on a lesser figure, but Deebo's got, bad feelings about it? Even that's a bad situation for the Niners.
Yeah. Michael Schrader says the Niners built a team-first locker room. Deebo is now being a me-first guy. Bought a custom Deebo jersey week 1, 2019, but I am fine just letting him go. Go get a couple high picks and draft young. I know a lot of fans feel this way. How do you feel?
I don't think he's being a me-first guy. I just think it's his time to get paid, and they don't want to pay. He took one for the team. They're worried about his future. They're looking at it going, we didn't really think about this, but now we're going to use him as a running back. I'm kind of worried about how this deal looks on the back end. Yeah, well, you should have thought about that before you use him as a running back, or you should have had a conversation saying, guys, we can use him as a running back, but you know what? That means we have to take care of him. Are we prepared to do that? And I don't know that conversation was ever took place.
It's not Deebo's fault that the wide receiver market exploded.
No.
All right. I mean, how can he be Kittle wanted to be the highest paid tight end. Warner wanted to be the highest paid middle linebacker. These guys all have their professional pride. Deebo Samuel just wants to be paid as good as he is. And the Niners are looking for reasons to take money away from him. And it's insulting after what he did for this team. I totally get it. But at the same time, it's not fixable. Nick Brown says, name one coach that will get him the numbers as a wide receiver. He fits in the. How about Andy Reid? You put him on the Chiefs right now with Patrick Mahomes. You don't think he's going to go crazy if he stays healthy? I'm just saying. I mean, there's other good coaches out there.
And Nick, what are you saying? Are you saying that this guy's a product of the system? I mean, that's crap. There's no way he's a product of the system.
I don't think so, man. I mean, was it the system that gained 83 yards on 3rd and 20? I mean, did Kyle invent a new type of tunnel screen? I mean, I've seen tunnels. There's only a few. It was Deebo. It was freaking Deebo.
Kyle's a good play caller. Kyle's an offensive mastermind. Kyle's a terrific coach. But this guy's not going to go to the Jets and evaporate. He's going to be fine. He's going to do really, really well.
Yeah, I mean, he put up really good 1,400 yards with Jimmy Garoppolo throwing 25 times a game. I think he can be okay. Now, I wouldn't expect him to be much when he's 32, but the next 4 years could be pretty good. Salah Safadi says, I don't think Paraga is as big of a role as we think, i.e. Trent Williams. I think Shanahan wants him. This is happening because Deebo wants out. Possible.
Why does Deebo want out?
Who approached him with the initial offer?
Yeah, I think this is all about Parag.
My reporter's job is to make stories only people know the truth about. Situation is 49ers at Tory Dandy and Deebo. Reporter's job is to make stories only people know the truth about. Situation is what? At Tory Dandy? What's going on? Is Tory Dandy on Twitter?
Man, that just reminded me. I got to go make myself a word salad.
I know it's so what? But hold on. Tell me Tory Dandy's on Twitter. Okay, let's see what he said. Nothing recently. I don't know. Okay, sorry. You're gonna have to help me out with that one.
Yeah.
Moving on. Seth Harvey says that Rams fan always in here obsessed, laughing my ass off. Get out of here, Grant. You truly don't think the wide receivers in this draft are good enough as Deebo, Olave, Wilson? What do you think?
Olave is Dante Pettis with a better 40 time. I mean, he's that weak at the line. I mean, seriously, if you told me Olave was looking for me and wanted to kick my ass, I wouldn't even be nervous. I'd be like, wow. That guy is not a physical player at all. He's going to get rerouted constantly. He's going to get overdrafted based on an incredible 40 time, and he's going to be somebody's third best wide receiver who's a former first-round pick in 3 years.
Hold on. I'm going on Twitter real quick. Hold on. I think we need to go. Hold on. I think you need to go. I'm blocked from Deebo. Can you go on Twitter real quick and see what he's tweeting? I think he's tweeting things. We'll keep going because Santiago says Twitter, Deebo Twitter right now. What is going on? Michael Durant says Navarro Bowman gave his leg for the organization when he was disgruntled and asked for a trade. The Niners released him. They used the reason as a once-in-a player. Says he's out. He's out. Deebo wants out. Goodbye. That's true. They did the same thing with Navarro Bowman. Voice ad agency says 137 rush yards, 154 receiving yards, 85 returning yards. I'll say it again, Grant. 47% of our total offense in the playoffs. Tell me if I'm wrong. You're right. 47% of the offense in the playoffs. Keith Murphy says his job is to be me first in the offseason. I only care that he's a team guy in the season. This may be Deebo's only opportunity to really cash in.
Here's the Deebo tweeted out, reporters' jobs is to make stories only people know the truth about the situation is the 49ers and Tory Dandy and Deebo Samuel. Tory Dandy is the managing partner and head of CAA Sports. So that's basically his agent. What basically saying is that nobody knows anything. The reporters don't know anything. Only people know things are me and my agent and the Niners.
Jeff Darlington literally said that he talked to Deebo Samuel.
Yeah.
Deebo.
That gives him wiggle room to take whatever offer and kiss and make up. That,
Sweet. Do it. Do it, Deebo. Honestly, if the Niners could work this out with Deebo, I really feel like if they have Deebo this year, they could win 10, 11, 12 games. Without him, I don't know about that. Maybe if they get Jameson Williams and he magically recovers from an ACL immediately and he's great, then they could do it. But they would have to really get some magical production from Kittle, Ayuk, Jawan Jennings. I don't know. I
have no problem trading Deebo because I think there's a good group of running backs and wide receivers in this draft, but there's a lot of misses. There's a lot of landmines, and you better get the right guy.
Every year. Brian Bunny says Deebo could just want to be closer to his family and not take a big California tax hit on his contract extension. I mean, once the Niners weren't willing to reward his sacrifice, there could be a million reasons not to be here. A million reasons.
Do you notice that he was not unhappy until the contract negotiations started?
That's right. That's right. So Keith Murphy says Tory Dandy is about business. He's been in the game a while. Got Chris Godwin $360 million coming off an ACL. Yeah, he just got Denzel Ward like $100 million. He's not messing around, and he's not going to let AJ Brown and Deebo Samuel get lowballed. D Wood 7300 says he doesn't want to be a hybrid. That's how he became a star. What now?
Well, that's a great one because that to me is like if you're the 49ers. Do you really want this player? If he's going to have his agent in his ear constantly saying, hey, man, every time they hand it to you, your career's on the line, and suddenly he doesn't want the ball handed to him at any price going forward,
that's a problem.
I don't know that I want to pay him anything approaching his asking price if he no longer wants to run with the ball in his hands because, in my opinion, that's what he's best at.
You know what? That would be a problem. I'd like to get a little bit of clarification on that from Deebo Samuel. All right, next topic. What's the best return the Niners can get for Deebo Samuel? Because we both agree that at this point, the way things have deteriorated, their best move at this point is to trade him, unless they can throw money at the problem and make it better.
Man, I would say that probably 10 and 69 or 10 and 61, whatever the Jets second is.
Okay.
I think that's the best they can do. I think 1 first and 1 second. I'd like to see him get 1 first and 2 seconds. But since those seconds are in the top 10, or since those firsts are in the top 10, the 10th pick and the 2 seconds would be what I would want. But my guess is that they get 1 pick in each round and the Jets wind up with 1 first and 1 second of their own and Deebo.
I think what's happening, it's been reported, I said earlier, that the 49ers are asking for a king's ransom, probably 2 first-round picks. That's smart because they'll probably have to settle for, as you said, a first and a second. So you start at first at 2 firsts. The thing is, I'm sure that the Jets are the natural trade partner, but I don't think they're going to trade the 10th pick for Deebo. That's my first prediction. I don't think they will. They didn't offer any first-round picks for Tyreek Hill. If they offer 10 and a second-round pick for Deebo, that'd be a pretty good return. You could do a lot worse. But I don't think the Niners are going to be that lucky, Larry.
You know what? John Lynch, in his mind, and he may be right, he might feel like he needs to, on paper, Grant, win the trade to avoid the criticism. For sure. There's already a lot of people who are going to criticize this offseason. There's a lot of people willing to criticize them for their handling of Garoppolo. Now you've got Garoppolo's money, which is dead on your cap. You got D Ford's money. He can't play anymore. That's dead money on your cap. And you're going to trade away your best player, your most popular player, because you can't afford him while you got all this dead money on your cap. The heat will be dialed up on John Lynch at an enormous level if he doesn't get a great deal for Deebo.
Now, here's what I'm thinking. If you want to make sure that you get a great deal for Deebo and you don't blow it, you trade him for a proven player. You trade him. You don't want to pay Deebo. Okay, find another Pro Bowl level wide receiver that you'd be willing to pay because this is the price now. And see if you can pull up. Can you trade him and some picks for Justin Jefferson? He's worth the money. Can you trade Deebo for AJ Brown? Is there someone else that you would like to pay? Because if you're trading them for picks, you traded Buckner for a pick and it became Javon Kinlaw. I mean, how good are you really at drafting, John? Kyle? It seems like plus, you don't have to just hit once on the Deebo replacement. You have to hit twice. You have to hit on the running back too. And you just drafted Trey Sermon in the third, traded up for Sermon last year. So how good are you really at drafting? there's that. So what I would say is trade him. I mean, what do you think? You think they can get Justin Jefferson for him? Probably not.
Probably not. Jefferson's kind of
Really
established himself. He's got a good rapport. He looks good. But Grant, I think we're missing the point. I don't think they want to pay any receiver $70 million, but especially a guy who's utilized as a running back. But I don't think there's like a magical receiver out there. Oh, AJ Brown. No, we'll pay AJ Brown $70 million. No, they're not.
They drafted Deebo over AJ Brown. Theoretically, they like Deebo more.
Good thing they didn't take N'Keal Harry.
Good job, Patriots. All right, so hold on. Let's stick with this for a minute. I think the Niners are looking – they'd love to get 10 from the Jets. I don't think they will. There are other teams, though, with multiple first-round picks. You got Philly. They have 15 and 18. And you got New Orleans, who have 16 and 19. I don't think the Niners are going to get both of those first-round picks from either
Kansas
team.
City, too, I think, right? Doesn't Kansas City have multiple
ones? Yeah, they got 29 and 30.
See, now, Kansas City makes sense. Why? Okay. Because Kansas City – has the 2 firsts, and they're in the area that they probably would be willing to part with both of them.
Now, I was thinking what could happen is, say, Philly trades 15 and 51. I don't know how that. So 15 and 51 would be about 1,500 on the trade value chart. 20, a little bit more than the Kansas City one, but it's similar. Also, the Niners could do 16 and 49 from New Orleans. Those are all kind of similar. But if the Niners want to say they got 2 first-round picks and won the trade, even though they're both at the very end of the first round, they could go with Kansas City. About the same.
New Orleans isn't doing that, though, right? Because don't they have Michael Thomas right now, who another high-paid receiver that they can't get rid of or don't want to? I mean, that's an awful lot of money at wide receiver to have Michael Thomas and him. I think Kansas City's viable, because I think they're in their Super Bowl window and they would see Deebo, as a guy who helps them. And I think the Jets are the team, really.
Okay. I wouldn't rule out Philly, though. I don't know if
they just went Devontae Smith in last year's draft.
They did, but they're not paying Devontae Smith yet. They're not paying their quarterback yet. They could be a sleeper here. Doesn't mean it'd be a smart move for them, but they were a playoff team last year. And I don't know how you feel about Jalen Hurts, but he's not worse than Jimmy, is he? I don't know. Check out Deebo's latest tweet. Hold on. Has he tweeted again? Okay, let me go on my burner account so I can check out Deebo. I got my burner account. Okay. No, we got that. Thanks a lot. We got it. I love how he says stuff and reports stuff, and then he walks it back oh, everyone thinks I'm talking about football. Man, you were just talking about football. Kajon25 says Deebo rookie year, 57, 802, 3 receiving, 15, 159, 3 rushing. Ayuk 67, 48, 5 receiving, 677, 2 rushing. Ayuk can fill Deebo's shoes. Draft Hall in second. Okay. You better be right. You better be right. You better be right.
Ayuk is a good player. I will say that. He's a better player than his stats. I think Ayuk's gonna improve whether Deebo's there or not. I think
he was
improve.
A really bad fit with Jimmy. So yeah, I'm with that. Real Benjamin says it's set up. Boost Deebo stats so you can get your picks back and draft Christian Watson. So Lance has his NDSU number 1. Both parties win. Can I just say that Christian Watson is not Jamar Chase, and pairing up Trey Lance with Christian Watson would not necessarily give you a Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase situation just because they went to the same team. I'd rather get let's finish this topic, what they can get for him. Okay, let's say they get pick 10, pick 13, pick 15, something in that top 16. Which wide receiver are you taking, Larry?
I'm taking Garrett Wilson from Ohio State if he's on the board. If he's not on the board, I'm not taking a wide receiver. I really don't want Drake London. And the Niners went to the Drake London workout. Drake London's a former basketball player, Grant, but he doesn't get any separation. People are patting him on the back because he wins jump balls in the Pac-12. But if you watch the film close, he doesn't have the quickness to separate from Pac-12 corners, and that's not going to be better in the NFL. And as far as Watson goes, I love Watson as far as a prospect. He's got great size, great speed. He's raw as hell. And as far as his route running, it's going to take a year, maybe 2, before he's a real up-to-speed, ready to contribute route runner. If you're looking for the guy who's ready to roll right now, it's probably the Penn State kid, Jahan Dotson, who's got great ball skills, but he's small, and he's not nearly as physical as Deebo. So, it's a problematic draft for wide receivers. Jameson Williams is going to have to redshirt.
That's
I
what I
love
want to ask.
Jameson Williams. I
Yeah.
love him, but he's probably going to have to redshirt. He tore his ACL, but he tore it in the national championship, so he's not going to play for probably most of his rookie year. So Olave's kind of weak. London doesn't separate. Jameson's got the ACL. Of the first-round receivers, I like Garrett Wilson the best.
They're going to draft Jameson Williams and just punt the whole season. I guarantee it. Lock it in, Jameson Williams. That's what's going to happen. He might be a great player. I watched him. He's fast. He's super explosive. But
super explosive.
Super explosive. Torn ACL, red shirt. Man, it's so
that's a Trent Baalke right there. I mean,
and it's everyone gave Trent Baalke like crap. Like he's the problem. Get rid of him. He leaves, the Niners do the same exact stuff, and he's over there spending all this money on wide receivers. Maybe there was a different common denominator around here that's still here. Think about it. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Keith says the irony, if we hold on to Jimmy while trading Deebo, didn't see that curveball coming. I know it when you put it that way, it sounds terrible. If the Jets have 4, why can't we get 10, Grant? I don't think they're going to give 10. I don't think they're going to do it. I mean, it just seems like they won't. If they do, God love John Lynch, but I don't think they will.
Yeah, I mean, you say, why wouldn't they do it? It's not that they don't, it's just they don't feel like they have to do it.
Yeah, there you go. I guess it's that simple. Richard says Jimmy and Deebo to Carolina for Burns and a couple first rounders. I'm not a big fan of including Jimmy in a Deebo trade because it seems like it lowers the value of Deebo.
Yeah, and
Jimmy?
First of all, this fantasy trade, now Carolina has Deebo at huge dollars.
Yeah.
And they're paying Darnold 18 and they're paying Jimmy 25. So what are the Carolina Panthers the one team in the NFL that doesn't have the cap?
They do have a rich owner, but they do have a cap. So
yeah.
Seth says don't comp Olave to Pettis, Devontae Smith more like it.
No way. No way. I mean, I studied these guys for an hour and a half. And I watched all the college football season. Olave is faster than Pettis, but he's got strength deficiencies and he's going to get mauled at the line.
He looks like Pettis on the field. Kajon 25. I saw him a lot last year when I was scouting Justin Fields. Kajon 25 says trade down if we get a mid-high first, draft a receiver in the second. Sky Moore with 2 Ys.
Very productive receiver for sure, but the step up in competition is going to be severe. I like Sky Moore, but there's other receivers I like better. But yeah, that's the sweet spot in this draft for the receivers is in round 2 and 3. Jahan Dotson, Penn State, Wan'Dale Robinson, Kentucky, Khalil Shakir, Boise, Jalen Tolbert, South Alabama, Watson. That to me is the sweet spot of this class of wideouts.
Is Sky Moore named after the vodka? Like the 2 Ys?
Yes. Wow. I don't know if it's named after the vodka, but it's got the 2 Ys.
That's really, really, really great. Okay, let's talk about this. Whose fault is this mess? Who ultimately is responsible for this Deebo Samuel debacle in your eyes?
It has to be equal blame to Kyle, John, and Parag, because when Kyle, none of these guys, you do not make decisions in a vacuum in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So there's a cap ramification for every move that you make. So when they moved him from wide receiver to running back after the Cardinal game and they started to take off and they kept handing him the ball and treating him like this hybrid player, they had to get on the same page with Parag and say, Parag, we're going to use him this way, but you have to pay him like a top wide receiver or we're going to have an issue. Mm-hmm. And Parag should have said at that point, well, guys, we're going to have a major issue. So, because to me, I don't want to sign this player to a wide receiver top of the scale contract, especially if we're going to use him in short yardage like he's Larry Zonka. So, I mean, to me, it was the lack of communication. And also, in some ways, it's nobody's fault, Grant. I know that's not a sexy answer, but in some ways, it's nobody's fault because it's situational. And they had to do what they had to do with the bullets flying. And that was use Deebo as a running back because they needed him in there. And then this is all kind of a product that stemmed from that decision.
But it's interesting. You said like it's like the unholy trinity, the unholy triumvirate, the 3 of them not really being on the same page, not working well together. Well, whose fault is that, Jed? Ultimately, this is Jed's fault. And I think, to me, I'm going to focus on one guy in particular, even though it may not be fair because everyone's at blame here, as you pointed out. But Parag Parag is the tip of the spear when it comes to the offseason and negotiating player contracts. He's the chief negotiator. He's the first person to sit down and give an offer. And Kyle come in at the end and say, "This is my roster. I want who I want. Give him what he." But Parag is the first one. He's the guy that like slaps the player across the face and says, "I don't know what you thought this was going to be, but it's not going the way. I'm going to win this negotiation." And to me, I think he might have been useful to this organization at a time. Maybe 15 years ago, maybe 10 years. When he was hired in 2001, the Niners had no idea what the salary cap was, and the salary cap was $67 million. Now everyone's had a salary cap for like 25 years. Everyone knows everyone has a Parag in their organization, and no one's really worried about cap-friendly deals, team-friendly deals. I mean, people just spend because the cap is soaring year after year after year, and it seems like to me, Parag is just kind of like a holdover from another era. He's obsolete, and the way he does business is predictable. It's robotic, it's formulaic, and it's really turning off players like Deebo. Players are making like NBA money now. Guys making $30 million a year, $40 million a year, fully guaranteed contracts. Like they're not going to put up with guys like Parag anymore. I'm sorry. I think he's doing the Niners more bad than good at this point, and it would be in their interest to get rid of him, but they won't. He's so.
He's
like he controls the York's entire finances. He is their guy, and he's not going anywhere.
He's not going anywhere.
No.
I think the other issue that we haven't really hit on is there is a price of doing things and a cost of doing things, and it's not the same. Mm-hmm. And I think the failure to understand that what's really important is not the price, but the cost. So if Parag's focused on the price, and in reality, there's a cost to all these decisions. And to me, it's not one and the same. What's the price of paying Deebo, X? Well, the price is whatever you paid him, but the cost is the impact of on your football team in all these other areas that we're discussing. Right. So like, to me, there's a disconnect between those two concepts.
The price makes Parag's stomach turn, but the cost of losing Deebo, well, now you're rebuilding.
Right. Now you're sending messages to your locker room.
Yeah.
And you're sending messages around the league. And you're letting your coach dictate how you're going to play players, but then you're going to dictate how you're going to pay them. So who's really leading the charge here? So to me, the disconnect is between the price of Deebo versus the cost of having him versus the cost of not having him and all the factors that go along with it. I just didn't think they researched it.
I think Jed has to make up his mind. Like, what is most important to you, Jed? Is it being a cost-effective franchise? Which is what I mean. If that's the case, then keep Parag and keep doing what you're doing because they're a very lucrative franchise. I mean, they're making a lot more money than the Raiders. They seem to be printing money over in Santa Clara. But if you want to win a Super Bowl, then you can't be trading guys like Buckner and Deebo. I mean, I'm sorry. What other team that's winning Super Bowls is getting rid of their best players in their prime? I mean, trade Kittle. You want to trade a player? Trade the dude who's clearly on the downslope. The dude who's 29. Deebo? I don't know, man. It seems to me like Eddie wouldn't let this happen. And, the Yorks traded Owens as well. Owens was a little bit older, but like, can the Niners really not deal with like serious stars who have like leverage and egos? Like that's a problem.
Well, I'll say this. Who did the negotiation during most of the era of the Niners dominance? It was Carmen Policy. And Carmen Policy had a great manner to him. And you always felt like he probably communicated their game plan and how they viewed things. But he also, I would almost guarantee if he was going to be in this situation where he was going to be paying a player less than he wants, that he would explain to that player how much that player's loved and how this is the best thing for winning and try to get in that where I think
the kind of guy puts his arm around his shoulder and explains, hey man, this is what you want.
Right. Exactly. Do you want to be paid the most on a team that finishes, here, or do you want to win championships? I'm about championships. I think Parag doesn't probably sell the big picture to the players or the agents.
I don't know how well you know Carmen Policy. I've met Carmen Policy a few times. He's extremely charming.
Yeah.
He's the most charming man. I don't know. Maybe he just does it sometimes. But when I met him, he's been in super charming mode. That's how I assume he is all the time. I mean, he makes you feel like you're the star. He's very nice. He can be very nice. Parag is not like that. I mean, Parag will be like polite. Hey, Grant, how are you? I mean, not like rude, but He's not social. Carmen is like a social genius. So I can see Carmen negotiating a player down and convincing the player that it's in his best interest and having the player leave happy.
Right.
Parag can't do that. Parag is going to beat you and let you know that he beat you. He's less graceful. He got less finesse.
I agree. Yeah. And he also, I think, Carmen, Eddie, the Niners lost $10 million one of those years they won the Super Bowl. Their bottom line was the fans' bottom line. It was one and the same. And now I think there's multiple bottom lines. John's got his, Kyle's got his, Jed's got his, Parag's got his. And I don't think it's necessarily a singular vision. I think there are multiple visions for success here.
Why are the 49ers so addicted to, dependent on, intertwined with Parag? Why? They're very wealthy. I mean, they're worth $4 billion. The organization is, but it's like they're not independently wealthy, the Yorks. Their money is the franchise. The Rams, I mean, their money is like Walmart. Kroenke, I mean, his wife is the heiress of Walmart. I mean, a lot of these owners nowadays have billions of dollars from other things, and maybe these Yorks are just more about sort of managing the money they make off this franchise and not pouring funds into it the way the Rams seem to be doing it. I don't know. I know that this is one salary cap, but it seems like the Niners sort of pick and choose when they splurge.
I think Parag's really enormously intelligent, and he's shown that on multiple occasions. And I think there's some things that he's really good at. I think he's probably really good at manipulating trade negotiations and that kind of thing, and canvassing the league for draft trades the way John McVay used to. I think there's some real value in Parag, and I think he's sold Jed on his value, and ultimately it ends there. I think Jed understands that there's value with Parag, that Parag's going to help Jed keep more dollars in his own pocket. That's going to make mom and dad happy. Yep. But you know what it's resulted in? 0 titles. 0. And they had 5 when these guys all showed up in the building. So factor that in.
They went to the Super Bowl, and their next move, the next offseason, was to trade DeForest Buckner. And, Parag and all his guys will try to sell you on it, why that was the right move. And they could get more cost-effective players, blah, 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 blah. The Rams, what the Rams do is when they have those top-flight, blue-chip, 5-star players, they keep them. And the ones that leave are the ones who are, the supporting actors. When the Rams get a top-level player, the Niners are like, we don't know what to do with this guy. He wants a lot of money? Parag, can you believe this guy over here wants a lot of money? Like, yeah, he's really good. You want players like that. The Rams are gladly, but not you. You want the Eric Armsteads of the world, the guys who are just a little bit. The 4-star players. That's the Niners. We have the best fullback in the league. Congratulations. Right. Wonderful. What are that?
You're paying him a boatload. Yeah, I mean, the Rams have been all in, and they sprinted towards a title, and the 49ers are mostly in, and they're hedging, and then that's well put. You can't hedge.
Well put. Timothy says if Deebo's traded, should they go full on rebuild? There's no should. They will. That's just I'm sorry. That's the nature of the situation if they trade Deebo. I could be wrong on that one. I could be wrong.
I don't think wrong. I'll say this about football. The way the injuries, the speed of the injuries, the amount of injuries, you're always rebuilding. You're never not rebuilding. Every team in the league is rebuilding every year.
That's a good point. Nick says Deebo and Jimmy to the Panthers for the 6th pick, and Brian Burns and Christian McCaffrey. What do you think?
Well, it's better than Sam Darnold. It's got to be it's got to be McCaffrey or Darnold. I think it's Darnold. If Jimmy winds up with the Panthers, Darnold will be a Niner, and I really believe that, and it'll be renegotiated. But I would love the 6th pick, and I would love Brian Burns,
because the Niners could say like, "Look, we'll pay for 3/4 of Jimmy's salary," and the Panthers could say like, "Don't do that. Just take Darnold." And I'm like, that's the same thing, right? Oh.
Well, if Rule keeps Darnold, Rule's fired at the end of the year. If Rule moves from Darnold to Jimmy,
Rule's fired at the end of the year.
He's probably fired at the end of the year, but he's not for sure fired at the end of the year.
Yeah, you're right. What they should do is trade for Kyler. I don't know if they can work that out, but that's what I would do if my job.
Now that's interesting, because there's a lot of talk that Arizona may deal him. Wouldn't that be wild?
That's what I would do. But
that one's going to involve Trey.
Yeah. David Velez says now's our chance. Deebo for Joey Bosa, straight up. Bookend Bosa's baby could probably win the Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts as wide receiver 1.
Yeah, great.
Deebo. I like the idea of trading Deebo for a proven commodity. I do like that idea because the idea of trading him for the next Javon Kinlaw is a little scary.
I get that, but that player's got to be in his first or second year, in my opinion. Football, there's only so many years. I don't want anybody in their third year or anybody older than that.
No, I thought hopefully younger than Deebo.
Yeah.
Carmelo says, "Why does Deebo want out of SF? Is it Cali taxes?"
Doesn't help.
I don't think it helps. Maybe I think it's the gas prices. I think it's the fact that you have to pay for the paper bags. Vance says, "Lowball, Buckner, Kittle, Bosa, Deebo are stars. PG got to go. I think the Niners will not pass on one of the sleeping draft of wide receiver second and third round. We don't know what they're going to pay Bosa. I have a feeling they're going to gladly pay Bosa whatever he wants, and I don't know why.
Bosa's their blue chipper, right? They didn't put a lot of I don't think they put a lot of thought into that pick. They're just like, oh, he dropped in our lap. And I don't think they're going to put a lot of thought into that contract. They're just going to find out who's making the most and give it to him.
Pretty much. Andrew says, why not take Sauce Gardner over a wide receiver with the ones we get from Deebo trade or a number one cornerback like we need?
Love Sauce Gardner. He's totally dominant. He's a true number one. And you'd have to wind up with the fourth pick in the draft because I think he's likely to go in the top 5.
7,300 D Wood says the Yorks don't have any input on this. Do you think Denise York cares? I don't know.
Maybe. Well, I mean, I think they absolutely are aware of all of it as far as the money, the impact. They want it all. They want to win. They want to win at their price. Everybody wants to win. Who's committed to winning? I don't really think it's to me, it's just about they want to win, and they're not sure exactly how to win, and they're listening to their football people, and Prague is on that list, believe it or not.
Kajon25 says traded the Lions for 32, 34 plus. That's plus similar to what you were saying with Kansas City.
How do you trade Deebo Samuel for 2 picks in the second round? I mean, you just took Aaron Banks in the second round.
That's the thing, though. Kansas City, their picks are like 29 and 30. This is 32 and 34. It's similar, but what you said earlier, John has to win the trade in like the eyes of the media and the fans. It's a big difference between saying 2 1s and 2 2s, even though there's not a big difference in those packs. That's where John's at right now. You got to win it. The perception is you did a good job. This is not going to get it done right here. Not getting it done.
No.
Nope.
I mean, even the army of yes men are going to have a hard time fixing a chart that shows that was a win.
Jay says, love you, Larry, but looks like you haven't showered in days. Must be grinding film. What about me? I
just showered like an hour ago. I had a workout this morning.
That's the thing. When you do shower, it looks like you haven't showered. I mean, I think that's my experience in life. The coach says Deebo just tweeted, reporters' job is to make stories. The only people that know the truth about the situations. The Niners, Tory Dandy, and Deebo Samuel. All right, man. And apparently, you were talking to yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right, good, man. If maybe this is him walking it back and being like, all right, okay, all right. I changed my mind. Cooler heads have prevailed. Good. That would be good news for the 49ers. Official B&A Music 88 says it's hard to sell, take less for the team when Mr. GameStop is never all in on building a team. Imagine taking less so the team can get Josh Norman. Yeah, like why are you taking less? The Niners don't really splurge. It's just to save money. It's just so Parag can say, I'm good at my job. And the Yorks can say, our profit margin was better than it could have been. That's pretty much it.
So, I mean, when you're the percentage of the offense that Deebo has been, my goodness, you don't want to take a penny less, especially if the game plan is to run you up through the A gaps on 4th and 1. If I was a receiver and they wanted to pay me like a running back, I'd say no problem. Play me any way you want. Pay me top of the scale.
Yeah,
pay me top of the scale, and I'll run through anything.
I'll play defensive end for you.
Right.
Terry Brooks says, "Here's $2. Thank you very much." The real Benjamin says, "Deebo for McLaurin." Also wants a new. He got to pay him. Same exact situation. You have to pay him.
Yeah, so I mean that's a lose-lose. You lose Deebo, the fans are mad, and you have a receiver that's really solid, but nothing more.
Michael Duran says Eddie D lost the Niners to illegal riverboat gambling, and when he left the Niners to the Yorks, he left them in salary cap hell and millions in debt. There was a reason why they used to be frugal. Yeah, man, you know how long ago that was? Do you understand how long ago? That's ancient history.
I mean, Michael, seriously. I mean, Michael, do you have any idea about the cost structure of the NFL? How do you think the Niners were able to say goodbye to the Chip Kelly era? How were they able to say goodbye to all the assistant coaches from the Harbaugh era, the Tom Sula era? They paid all those guys to go away. Why? Because they got a huge amount of cash coming in at their disposal to pay these people off with. I mean, that's the revenue in the NFL is way more than you're accounting for there.
And look, like the trend in the 2000s when the Patriots were winning all those Super Bowls, and maybe the 2010s too, was don't pay stars. You don't want to have a few really high paid players on your team. You want a middle class. You want to spread your money out. I mean, the Patriots did it that way for a long time. It's a way different league now. It's way different. I mean, the cap is like double what it was back then. And you're seeing teams are having success spending and sort of pushing, a lot of those cap hits down the line because the cap's going to keep going up. And I think you kind of got to react. The Niners seem like they're stuck in the past a little bit on this one. And I feel like they got called out. It was exposed on the Deebo thing, particularly. And Jimmy Garoppolo, like, they did not pivot on the Jimmy Garoppolo thing. They thought they'd get 2 seconds for Jimmy Garoppolo, and then the quarterback market was flooded with quarterbacks, and they're like, actually, maybe he's worth a third or a fourth, and they never even pivoted. I don't know.
I think this goes back to what I was saying before about everybody's got their own scoreboard.
Yeah.
Kyle wants to win games and John wants to win trades and Parag wants to win negotiations. And those things don't always, they don't always add up.
AJ says, do you think Jimmy G's situation has anything to do with the trade request? BT Dub, both of you rock best 49er show on YouTube. Like they're keeping Jimmy Garoppolo because they're going to lose Deebo Samuel. That'll make fans feel a lot better. Look, we lost Deebo Samuel, but Jimmy's coming back one more year. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Maybe I misread that. Maybe
it'll just be all perfect.
Scotty says, will trading Deebo cause Trent to also request a trade? Right? Because Trent Williams said
Then you're rebuilding.
Trent Williams did not want to be on a rebuilding team. He wanted to sign with a contender. He chose between the Niners and the Chiefs. He might not want to. He's 34.
That one's interesting because what if they trade Deebo, I should say, what does that set off around their room?
How many people are like, I'm out. I don't want to be on this 6-win team. That's a good point.
That should be, they better be factoring that in because that's a fluid situation.
Absolutely. Let's end on that one. If you haven't followed, subscribe to Larry Krueger's Twitter, YouTube, do all of that right now. Larry, what's your schedule for the rest of the day?
I'm going to hop on with Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker on the Locked On 49er podcast. And then we'll do a little Giants Mets post game.
Oh, nice.
My old friend Patrick Connor is going to stop by on the Krug show on YouTube.
Pecan.
Loving it. Having fun. Pecan out there. Talk a little draft with Pecan, a little post game.
I love that. Vance says, Grant, who you taking, Jimmy or Norman? Is Norman's career over? Is Dante Pettis' career over? Tyshawn Samuel, Deebo. No, I'm not going to say that. You wrote it twice too. I was trying to ignore that because it's not a nice thing to say. Julio says, what's up, Grant? How can we go from a Super Bowl team to this? Crazy, man. This team was stacked and we still couldn't get it done. The pressure for Lance will be insane.
Here's the receiver we didn't mention. Julio. I could see Julio being part of this mix because Julio's probably ready. He's been banged up enough where he's probably ready to take less money. And he's a name, and Kyle loves him. I could see them moving Deebo in a trade for picks, and then signing Julio and saying we're better. We
got it. Julio Jones.
All
right, everyone. Thanks for watching. I'll be back later on tonight. Take care.